So like I said, we'll go ahead and get started now. Some of you may have met me before, know me. My name's Derek Seidel, one of the sales representatives here at Collective Data. I've been here about 4 years. I know we're not here to talk about me, but I figure we kind of lay out how the agenda is going to lay today. I know you all are here to listen to me talk about trends that we've seen in 2022 for fleet management, and then what we're kind of projecting or going to expect to see here in 2023. This is a very informal presentation today, so if you have questions, feel free to throw it in the chat or question box. We'll try to get through as many as we can here at the end of the presentation. Then, whatever we can't answer, we'll make sure we can set aside some time with those individuals who asked and can go from there. So again, thank you all for joining today. Let's go ahead and get this rolling here. So a little bit about the agenda today. I know we all just introduced me. It's great. But again, a few things we'll be talking about here is, what have we seen in 2022, what we're seeing here in 2023, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, what next steps and what's to come afterwards. So kind of starting off here with 2022 fleet trends. Some of these may be familiar to you, some may not, but a lot of what we've seen from just working with clients, going to trade shows, GFX, APWA, you name it, and a lot of it's just come from if you're listening to news and what's going on. But between fuel consumption, rising gas costs, to supply chain, not enough microchips, part shortage, you name it, to when's the right time or best time to replace your vehicle, going through that process. We've seen a lot behind that. Electrifying your fleet. We're going to see that here, and then as well as continuing in 2023. It's clearly not going away, but how our organization is kind of starting to shift with that from this last year, and then again what we'll see next year or this coming year, and then labor shortages. I feel like that was a pretty hot topic that has really come about, and I'm sure some of you are laughing, or I don't want to say laughing, but sure probably experienced it. I know I've heard enough of it from just talking to a number of you. It's hard to find good employees, and sometimes I know just keep them on there. So we'll go to this first one here, talking a little bit about the fuel consumption. So you heard me say it right away, rising fuel costs. That was a pretty big thing, a lot of factors going into that. And I know everyone's looking of how can we minimize fuel costs or really start to track the fuel usage of what's going on. Now, whether y'all are with us and utilize our fleet program, or I know there's a number of you that aren't using Collective Data today, that I'm sure you're on some kind of fuel and fleet management system. So, what reports do you have available that's really been able to help tell the story and track those costs? And more importantly, again, how are you able to minimize those costs between, reports that are available? Or I know even with when we kind of dive into telematics later, I know that can really help too if you're looking to optimize routes, to drop that fuel consumption. And again, I think it'll tie into electric vehicles too here, but I thought it would be noteworthy to at least share a report or two that has helped and can help see what's going on with your fleet. So I'm going to pull over just one report about our fuel efficiency, really seeing what vehicles are getting the most for their mileage, what's taking up the most. So really being able to tell a story or dive into your fleet. And I'm sure you all have seen something like this, but how are you able to figure out what vehicles are rising the most costs with your fuel, and what are you doing to cut back on those costs? So again, fuel summary, fuel cost reports. I know there's a lot of data out there of what you can run and really address those needs and can start minimizing costs. So if we keep going on here, the next piece we had on was the supply chain. We've heard a lot this last year, microchip shortage, part shortage. How are you able to get new vehicles if you're running into those chip issues? And then again, what's important here is what do you have and what do you need, and how can you be proactive so you're not having to run into those issues? A lot of what I've heard is, are there these vehicles that you're able to keep, let's say, an extra 2 to 5 years and run until the wheels fall off? I know that's not always the most ideal, but with a lot of these shortages we've seen in the last year, that's the way a lot of us have had to operate and upkeep the vehicles and pieces of equipment today, as well as going back to parts here of not having enough parts in stock. So a couple of things that we've seen, at least with our system here, that can help with being more proactive, even going into this next year. A lot of these things don't just happen overnight and change right away, but there are a couple of things we have in place that can help address with part shortages and making sure you're not getting a part before it's too late or running out. But we have a report in here talking about parts needed for upcoming PMs. Now, again, with our system being very intuitive and how this can help you out, or if you're thinking about what your current fleet system operates, is something like this can really help project those pieces or those parts that you may need for an upcoming PM, whether it's 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days, you name it. But really being able to kind of take that into your own matters here and start projecting those parts you may need to kind of alleviate that, and maybe not running into those issues where you're getting parts when it's too late and having to wait an extra maybe 60 to 90 days, whatever it may be. And then one other report too that's going to kind of tie into our next topic here. But if we're talking about replacement of vehicles and not being able to get them what you want, having these reports like an Outlook report that's going to kind of tell a story of all vehicles and or equipment that you have, and really being able to look out and project those years to see exactly when you need it, to start kind of getting ahead of the curve and really being able to replace that. Okay. So going back to this slide, I know we just kind of talked about a couple reports that can help with it, but again, this was a big topic from last year that, again, I don't think it's just going away right away, and really kind of dabbles into some of those labor shortages we've seen too. So if we keep going on here, talking about replacement of vehicles, between budget restraints to, again, talking about the supply chain, or maybe spending too much money on your vehicles and justifying that purchase. What's available to help tell that story for you, and what have you been able to do with your current fleet operations? What kind of reports are out there that's going to be able to help justify this out there? Everything seems to kind of revolve around data mining and how can you get what you need or spend a lot less time getting those reports. Just one report that I think is worth mentioning here from our system, and be curious to know, or you can start thinking about what's available with your current fleet system. Again, if you're not with Collective Data here, but a scorecard report. So imagine you've got your fleet, you've got your equipment out there, really being able to see and know exactly when you need to replace anything. With this scoring model we have, this is all based off of metrics that you would need to set up in our system that aligns with your needs. But end of story here, and how this works is, if you were able to look at these vehicles, find the right time or the right fit for replacing those vehicles here, we got a scorecard report that's really going to kind of start telling a story from how much maintenance are you plugging into these vehicles, what's the reliability of the vehicle, to, and how much mileage has gone into it. So really being able to pinpoint those reasons why your vehicle or equipment is so high in the score, and telling you whether or not to replace it can really just be a deeper analytic that you can actually dive into, as opposed to running a lot of different spreadsheets or reports to kind of gather this data, but one central report. So again, thinking about just what you have today and what's at your fingertips. All right, so let's go on to this next slide here. All right, so electrifying your fleet. I think this is, again, another big topic that is, it's not going away. We're seeing a lot of push for it, and depending where you're at in the country, everyone's kind of at a different point in their life, but we know it's not going away. Some of these big factors we're kind of seeing, this push is, the rising fuel costs are driving that. Looking at cost comparisons to what you're driving in your gas guzzlers, we'll call them, to your electric vehicles, and then of course a lot of things that are really going into it beyond that. But infrastructure costs. I know it's not just a simple or cheap thing to get set up, but there's really a lot behind that too. That's really kind of dictating and determining when departments are making that move, and it's a lot deeper conversation around that. There's a lot of good articles out there that we've identified that can help talk about this. But if you're looking at going to those electric vehicles, what kind of reports and metrics are you looking at to help determine whether now or later is going to be the right time for a fit? I know obviously there's gas emissions and all those carbon footprints we're trying to reduce, but really kind of looking at some electric vehicle charging stats of what kind of those consumption rates may look like, or again, if we're talking about those operating costs, what's it cost to run a Tesla, just one example of a fleet vehicle, or excuse me, electric to, again, your typical Ford Explorer, Ford F-150, whatever it is, but really being able to identify those costs and truly justify it. There's a lot really you can consider about going into that, but again, a hot topic that we know is not going away between that and hybrid vehicles. So I'm sure you all are well aware of some of the things going on in your organization that you can relate to, or feel free to throw it in the comments of kind of what you're seeing in your area too. So the last one I have here, again, for what we've seen in 2022 that I think has probably been the biggest one of them all, that I remember, there's a speaker over at the GFX Expo last year that had a pretty good presentation, and this is one of those topics that really stuck out to me. And what we're hearing from talking to numerous departments, from current to ones looking at fleet systems, is whether it's people not having enough qualification for the job, or gosh, I've even heard some that I've talked to that just aren't getting enough applicants or workers to apply. And then, with that, you might be spending too much money, on vehicles, and how can you actually attract that new talent or even attain it? So, some things I actually heard from the same speaker was, what we've seen other agencies do is working with local schools. I know there's a lot of programs out there to kind of kickstart and get individuals involved in this industry. Mechanics aren't going away. It's ever evolving, just like anything else. And how are we preparing them for the world? So a lot of resources out there. I don't know if this works for everyone, but obviously there's the ability to outsource, recruiting to get talent. So looking at different windows and varieties of how can you actually get past that. And I think there's kind of a shift going into this next year, but again, still talking a lot of these agencies, it seems like there's a number that have started hiring, so that's good. But kind of curious to see where everyone kind of stands with this as we kind of roll into 2023 here and where you're at. All right, so that's enough about 2022. What can we expect to see here in 2023? So a lot of it's kind of those same topics. We're going to see an overlap here. Continued and increased use of telematics and GPS devices. There's a lot of power in those. So we'll talk about that to increased adoption of electric and hybrid vehicles. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but we'll dive into that. And then this next topic here that kind of, I would say, overlaps with that is the integration of AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So we'll kind of talk about that and what you might see. And then of course, just something that's ever evolving too is a mobile technology. We're so reliant on these devices here. What are some takeaways with that to really learn? All right, so let's talk about this first one here. So continued and increased use of telematics and GPS devices. So I think these are some 4 good key points that after working with various GPS providers, Samsara, Geotab, Verizon, you name it. If you're looking at their websites and what they're offering to, what we're hearing clients ask for is all about route optimization. Again, this big other one here is cutting fuel costs. How are we able to drop that down? Everyone's either going to electric or looking for those ways to cut costs, or those costs kind of going up. And then improved safety, which kind of goes hand in hand with driver behavior. I think with those two, safety is a big thing and staying in line with compliance. But then of course your driver behavior. I mean, all these guys and gals on the road here, who's burning up the brakes too fast, or who's getting involved with accidents, and learning about those offenders and how can you make improvements. So there's a lot of data at your fingertips, and I know with those providers out there that whether you're using them or not today, I think they're definitely a big investment, but well worth it from what I hear talking with current agencies that have them. I mean, it definitely goes beyond just knowing where you are. I think it's really kind of looking at these 4 things here are big keys to what you can really take away with these telematics devices. And then of course, if anyone's like looking for recommendations on those, I know we work with a number, there's a lot of resources out there to really talk about which one's the best one or the best fit for you. So a lot of different like communities out there, from government fleet experts to fleet magazines that can kind of help you out. But if you have questions or comments about that, let me know, and happy to provide some more insight on that. All right, so on to the next topic again here, increased adoption of electric and hybrid vehicles. Again, everything's all about the carbon footprint. How are you driving sustainability? So again, with climate change, all of that, and businesses wanting to save money on fuels, I think this is definitely one area that departments are kind of turning to. And then of course, two other things here too that I think are worth noting. Is reduced repair costs. Obviously, you don't have to do like an oil change anymore with electric vehicles, but it's definitely going back to that operating cost report of comparing those two types of vehicles, from fuel to or like gas guzzlers to electric, but looking at those repairs. And then of course, I think with going into electric, I definitely, I think you're gonna see a transition of what's actually needed for labor, and might kind of work hand in hand with that labor shortage too, and how that transitions. Again, it's not overnight, but I think as we keep moving on, electric vehicles are taking over a lot faster. And then of course, you're just seeing a lot of those charging stations just pop up more and more, faster and faster around the country, and of course the world. All right, so on to increased artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is a big thing that we're seeing, and I actually just heard another article about it on the news for other topics. But being able to help identify patterns and trends that, being a fleet manager, I think you're already going to be able to do that. But having this technology, I think, is just going to take it a step further. And between electric vehicles and all these other computerized devices, going into vehicles. Imagine all the time you're already spending today, but just think of this as a way to really help improve your efficiency, cut back costs, and make more educated decisions that, again, I'm sure y'all are thinking of. But just knowing this technology is coming in, and I think it's kind of coming in hot, and just like electric vehicles, we're going to really see kind of a shift in that. But think of how many different things it could do, from predicting maintenance, or avoiding costly downtime, or going back to your drivers, helping identify those different kind of trends. So, it's something I don't think to be scared of, but to embrace. It's not, I would say it's not replacing any jobs, just from conversations and what we're hearing, but definitely a way to help improve things, and take over, I would say, daunting tasks that maybe take up some time, but it's really going to put time back into your day, and all about how you're going to use it. All right, and last one here, reliance on mobile technology. So, we all have mobile phones, and not going away. It's becoming, ever so powerful, more at our fingertips, from, scheduling maintenance, submitting repairs. I mean, these are all pretty basic that I'm sure y'all are well aware of, but it's just kind of nice to see what else to expect, or, in your department, everyone I think is going to be a little bit different here, but just having those alerts and awareness always, and just know how it can help improve things. And then of course, like real-time tracking, going back to GPS, or knowing where your vehicle's at in the shop. And then I think a last one that is just simple here is just communication, being able to go back and forth with departments, or taking other tasks on. So lots of things that really your mobile phone's going to do. Just I would say just more increased awareness, or more increased usage, and reliance is really going to stem for this, and just continue to take over, and only make things stronger for departments. And I think that's just going to kind of wrap up today. We've covered a lot, from what's happened in 2022, from supply chains to fuel usage and consumption, to labor shortages, and then of course looking into the new year, what are we seeing from increased AI, more usage with your telematics devices, and then mobile technology. So, I'm curious to see, again, I know this is a pretty informal conversation today, but I'm kind of curious to see if y'all have questions, or comments that others that I'm happy to share with you, of what you're seeing or what you're hearing, or just questions in general. Okay, so first question I have is, what version of Fleet do you need to get the asset replacement cost report? So if we're talking about the Outlook one here, I'm kind of curious to know what version you have. I know I've seen this like in version 7 and after, but our most recent version is going to have that. And then of course we had the scorecard report too that we talked about. That one is also going to be in our most recent version. So I'm not entirely sure which version you're on today, but I would definitely, I can get you connected with your account manager afterwards and look at scheduling a time to meet over this and talk about these couple things. But yeah, you're going to expect to see these in both the newer versions of our system today. All right, so next question I had here, does your software support tracking of EVs? Yes, a couple of those things I've had here of like talking about operating cost comparisons is just one thing. But where else we can help too is, as long as we have a good understanding of those fields or information you can track, that's not going to be a problem. I know one other example too, I've actually seen from one of our vendors we work with for fuel, WEX. I know they have a lot going on with electric vehicles and grabbing those transactions. So if you guys are already using electric vehicles, that is something we could just pull over. You just need to know the right fields, and it's something we're continuing to add more information in on for tracking electric vehicles. And then another question that came after was, can I integrate my telematics and fuel providers so I can view all of my data in one place? The answer is yes. Common things that we're seeing with the fuel providers is bringing over like the, I'll bring over my screen too, just so you can kind of see it. But the common things we're bringing over with the fuel here is like the transaction of what vehicle was it, what employee filled the vehicle, the cost and the unit. So then also what it's going to do is it's going to bring in the mileage. So that way, when it's all said and done, it's keeping those PMs up to date. Same thing with the telematics and GPS devices. We're bringing in the common things we're really bringing in is like the mileage reading again on the vehicle. It can also bring in coordinates or a map. And then I would say another big thing though that it's bringing in, besides helping making sure those PMs are up to date, is any fault code that's coming in from your GPS devices. So if you're using the DVIR capabilities with your current providers, that is something we can bring in. So if it was like an engine or brakes or identified, that is something that it's going to actually bring right into our maintenance request piece, or it also is going to, it could also generate a work order too. Those were all the questions I had so far. Anything else? Give you all just a moment or so here. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. So just kind of next steps from here and what to expect. Go to the last slide here. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more question that just popped in. So is this software that runs separately from our fleet maintenance CMMS, or is this a fleet maintenance CMS? It looks like there's a couple vocabulary, or sorry, I was just trying to read the message there. So this is a fleet management software system. So whatever CMMS fleet maintenance system you're using, essentially we could replace what you're doing today. Our system is completely web browser based. So as long as you have internet connectivity, you'd be able to have access to this. And then I'll just throw one other follow-up question that comes with this too. A lot of folks generally ask is if you have all your historical data in that system and wanted it migrated over to our application, that is something we can provide as a service. So we've got options there, but again, answering your question, we are essentially a fleet maintenance CMMS solution that would replace your current system that you're using today. All right, I think that's all for the questions there. I'll just wrap up here, and then if I see anything else coming, I'll make sure to answer that quickly. But last thing here is we got another upcoming webinar actually this next week. And for those of you joining that aren't familiar with collective data, we we do a lot with fleet management, fleet maintenance, but the other side of things we do is working with a lot of law enforcement agencies for asset management. And there's a big need there for training management. So we're going to be talking about our advanced training module. But don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say it's just necessarily for fleet maintenance. We've actually, or excuse me, the law enforcement community. But if you're a large organization that has a lot of technicians or individuals that have to take annual trainings in class or online tests, this is going to be the webinar for you. So be sure to check this out if this is something you're looking for, or maybe now you're looking for, now you heard it. So next week, Wednesday, January 25th at 10 a.m. Central. That will be with a colleague of mine, Hillary Spears. But again, thank you for your time today and this opportunity. Should y'all have any other questions or any other comments, feel free to send them over. I'll leave it on this page here for just a second, grab my information. So any other outstanding questions, let me know. But again, thank you for your time, and y'all have a great rest of the day.